Hello and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions at all. So make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, you can chat with us every week live on Facebook or YouTube. So hello and good evening to all of you out in the internet land. You know me, my name is John Ruark, and I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge number 1957 in Fairfax, Virginia. And next up for introductions tonight, we have Jason Richards. Good evening, Jason. Who? What?
Oh, hey! I didn't see you there. Jason Richards, past master of Vacation Lodge number 16 in Clifton, Virginia, member of the Colonial Lodge number 1821 in Washington, D.C., and hopefully one of these days, member of a third lodge.
You know, it's a sign. If they haven't got back to you yet, don't call us. We'll call you. Robert Johnson, how are you doing this evening? Let
Might
me.
have to go back to Patriot.
Yes.
Uh,
Good evening.
Robert Johnson, past master, Waukegan Lodge 78, current sitting secretary at Space Novum 1183 in Libertyville, Illinois. And just happy to be here. Thanks.
All right, all right. And last but not least for tonight, we have our special guest brother, which is Brother Rusty Valle, who is the senior warden of Tampa Bay Lodge number 252 in wonderful Safety Harbor, Florida. Good evening.
Good evening, brothers. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Awesome. So, um, it's great to meet you. Right, we were just talking in the green room right before COVID. Was the last time
Yes.
we got together and um, broke some bread together. And wow, that was the weekend before everything shut down. The world shut down.
Yes.
So it's good to see you again, albeit virtually. Let's see. Before we get into tonight's episode, I want to thank all the patrons who've been supporting the show. Thank you all very much. You guys are awesome. And if you want to chat with us during the rest of the week, head on over to patreon.com/the Masonic Roundtable, and you'll join some. You'll get a nice little pin. You'll get some little perks behind the scenes. Get to chat with us. So hope to see you over there. It's always a good time, and it's always fraternal. With that, let's get to the topic of tonight's episode, which I've lovingly titled An Epic Journey to the East, because if anyone has a story to tell about the ups, the downs, the ins, the outs of pretty much every flavor of Masonry, it's Brother Rusty. Um, Again, as I met Brother Rusty for the first time out in Tampa almost 2 years ago, uh, he just regaled me with this tale of his Masonic history, and I'm glad we finally have the opportunity where we can actually deconstruct and walk through just this amazing past that you have, and yet here you are. So, without spoiling it or anything, like I want to know, like right from the beginning, like how did you get started in Masonry? How did you get curious? And what was your first step in Masonry?
Well, first of all, again, thanks for the opportunity to tell my story. It's a story that a lot of brothers will be interested in hearing, and hopefully it will direct some of our would-be brothers in the right direction. Uh, I'd always wondered about Masonry, or Freemasonry, conspiracy theories, the secrecy, the New World Order, that kind of thing. So, like any good pre-Mason, I searched the internet, of course, which is our Bible for for knowledge. Um, and I searched more and learned about the unity and the fraternity and charity. So it was always in the back of my mind. And then I came across a picture of one of my niece's maternal grandfather who was actually in full regalia. So it was always that we don't talk about that. We don't know much about that, I guess, because it was secrecy. So I actually mustered the courage to ask him one day, and we spoke for a while, and I knew him to be a very honorable man. And he put me in touch with a member of a lodge located in Brooklyn, New York. Now, I'm here in Florida, but I'm originally a New Yorker. So that's where my journey began. So I went there to meet the gentleman who put me in touch with, and I literally walked in, I greeted him, we talked for a little bit, and he handed me a petition. So I basically said to myself, well, I guess I'm doing this.
Well, that was fast.
That was fast. So I filled it out, went to the building, eventually when they told me I was going to receive my first degree. And as I went through my first steps in Masonry, it felt off a little bit. And me not knowing anything about anything, it felt off. When you know something is wrong, but you don't know much about it, but you just like something's not right here.
You got a gut feeling, right? Always trust your gut.
Right.
And something
got
wasn't
a
gelling.
butt feeling.
It wasn't that far, but it was one of those like, So, fast forwarding through the 3 degrees, of course.
So you did
when
get all 3 degrees.
I did get all 3 degrees. I was 33 years old when I got my 3rd degree in the lodge, so that was kind of cool. The name of the lodge is Equality Lodge in Brooklyn. Shortly after receiving the Master Mason degree, I was asked to assist as the lodge secretary. So I asked, like taking minutes and sending out mail, right? They're like, yeah, right. So I said, okay, sure, yeah, I'm here to help out. I can, whatever you guys need. So I did that for about a year. But I noticed that every month I would go to meet them, and we never had enough people show up to conduct the meeting. So I think during the course of my year as secretary, we maybe met 3, maybe 4 times total. And as the Masonic year came to a close, they informed me that the members would be moving up in their stations, not me not knowing much about the process.
I mean, so this sounds like a typical but struggling or dying lodge at this point.
Correct. So I was here to help. I'm here to to lend my hand in anything they need to be strong. I'm all about that. And the members were fairly older gentlemen. I was one of the 3 youngest of the lodge. So as the Masonic year came to close, they told me everyone was moving up, and I was asked if I wanted to become junior warden. So
moving on up.
Okay. I'll do that. Whatever you need me to do. So I was made junior warden in 2013, 2014. So this was about the time that Facebook was beginning its ascent to the pinnacle of social media. And of course, being a new Mason, I went on Facebook to join Masonic groups, see what I could learn, who I could meet, networking, like a good Mason. So I came across a Masonic group that was offering a special gift. I think it was either a medallion or a pin or something like that.
Oh, nice.
If you enrolled to a yearly subscription to their magazine, they would give you this pin or medallion. So that's pretty cool. I said, I want one of those. So I looked into the website, and it said, look on the list of Grand Lodges and see if it was there. And they give you the medal or the pin. So I looked at the list, and as the proud Mason that I was at the time, I was sure that my Grand Lodge would be on it. So I looked it up, looking for the Most Worshipful Enoch Grand Lodge, was not on that list. So I said, what's that about? So I reached out to the person who posted it on Facebook. And I told him I didn't see my Grand Lodge on the list, and asked if I could still have the gift with my subscription, if I was still entitled to receive it. He said that I could not, but they would still send me the subscription if I paid for it. Based on that, I decided to speak to the brother who was the most junior past master of my lodge and my mentor. And I asked him about, us, like the Grand Lodge of New York and our Grand Lodge. And he explained that, they don't recognize us and we don't recognize them. We're in different jurisdictions. So being new, I accepted the answer and continued on my merry way.
Right. You only know what
One thing is important. The other is not at all.
Right. I found it kind of weird, but I'm like, okay, it is what it is, right? I don't know much about Masonry. I'm still kind of new. I'm like, that's what he said, so that's what he said, right? But of course, something, gets fired up when the answer seems wrong. So I started to contemplate the question in my young Masonic mind. I thought it didn't make sense. If I was a Mason and they were Masons, why was this you're not, I'm not going on? So what did I do? I went back onto Facebook. And as some of us do when we ponder questions of the universe, I found another Masonic group. And they seem to be having decent conversations. So I posted a question. I said, if Masonry is supposed to be this universal brotherhood, then why is there so much division between one jurisdiction and another?
I mean, that's a
so
great
member
question.
of the group,
mm-hmm.
and that's what I know in my mind. In my mind, it made it to be that there's something that brings us together in unity and all this. I'm like, it doesn't make sense. Why are we so devised? So the brother of the member of the group, he's a Mason from Texas. He replied, and he asked me to explain what I meant by that question. So I messaged him and I explained that what I had just gone through and what I was told by my lodge brother. The very next question was, "What state do you live in?" And I replied, "New York." And then he says, "I thought you were going to say that." I'm
Oh,
like, wow. So this brother proceeds to explain to me that there had been a Mason who lived in the late 1800s or early 1900s who was expelled from the fraternity. And he opened a new Grand Lodge after being expelled
That's
without
blackjack and
receiving
hookers.
yes.
all that,
I'm gonna open
without
my own
receiving the
Grand
proper
Lodge.
authority to do so.
Right.
So, yeah, I'm like, what? So as a result of that, expelled Mason and that first clandestine Grand Lodge, at present, there are approximately 60 clandestine or bogus Grand Lodges in New York alone. Of course, I'm like,
to which you found
what
out.
just happened?
Yeah, this was the
hard way.
big revelation.
The big revelation. And that I had joined that clandestine lodge under the same umbrella.
Right. So for some of the new people listening, right? Let's get some terminology straight. So clandestine does not mean like fly by night or by CIA or anything like that. It means in Masonic parlance, it is one that is definitely not either regular or recognized by any major and long-held tradition governing Masonic body. And so, as the case was,
yeah, and not to be confused with irregular.
Right.
They are
Correct.
definitely two separate things. So,
and how would you describe irregular, Robert?
I would describe irregular as slightly askew to what we're all used to.
Yeah, different.
Maybe
but
everything
legit.
is the same. Maybe there's just a little difference here or there, but certainly not clandestine in the sense that you're paying hundreds of dollars and the worshipful master has bodyguards and there's an LLC after your Grand Lodge. Those kinds of things that we don't know about when we started. You wouldn't know about them. Like, there's just no way to know unless you knew, like, your grandpa or somebody and he knew about it and he told you about it. But like, I had nobody in my family. I had a pilot come in once and told me that he got into Masonry, but he got disinterested in it because it just got too expensive. And that just set off light bulbs for me. I was like, whoa, what? Masonry too expensive? What lodge is this?
Right.
And he goes, it's paying like $600 a month. And I was like,
that's something I've come across with a lot of Masons who came into clandestine organizations.
Yeah.
So
bleed them dry.
So, Brother Rusty,
and there's the candidate abuse part of that as well. There are a lot of, if you've read Freemasonry in Black and White by Charles Harper, he was physically abused as part of his degrees in a clandestine lodge.
So let's address that, right? When you said you felt something was off, like, was there any of that kind of over the top horseplay, hazing, anything like that?
Nothing that that I was like, what the heck is going on? It was more like, it doesn't seem like you guys know what you're doing. That was more the feeling I got.
Okay, all right.
See, there's a lot of that in mainstream Masonry.
Well, I mean, yes, as well, but it just.
Okay,
without going into too much
good.
detail, it was some things that just felt wrong to me.
So there wasn't any major hazing going on, which again, it sounds like you dodged a good bullet there.
Well, not in mine, at least.
Right, not in yours.
Yeah.
And at this point in the movie, where you kind of are unpacking all of this, and you're talking to these brothers on the internet, and you're starting to put the puzzle pieces together. Like, what's going through your mind? Like, how are you feeling? How are you processing
I was crushed.
all of this?
I was absolutely crushed. It's like you had taken. It's like you joined the army and they told you, yeah, that's not a legit army. What are you doing? Like, you're a Marine and you feel proud to be a Marine or part of the military.
That's
and
a
you're
good
like,
analogy.
You guys are not. That's not the real army. We are the real army over here. And you're like, yeah, that it was crushing to me.
You're the Alabama militia.
Right. I don't know. I was very proud at that point of being a Mason and joining the organization and being part of something, so much more grand than I was, and to be told that I wasn't a legitimate Mason, yeah, that wasn't a good feeling.
Can we take a minute? And I just want to explore your feelings in this moment, because it's so think about this idea that you've got so much invested, and then you hear this thing that obviously you're completely at odds with. You don't want to admit this to yourself. We have this whole issue in society today where people have this it's very fashionable today, I think. Sorry, I'm dropping stuff. That we say we have to get over our biases and all of these things to move society forward. And part of that is like this idea that we are recognizing how we feel about stuff. And so, like, most of the time when you tell somebody they're clandestine, the response is you have to really tiptoe into the area and take them under your wing, because otherwise the message gets lost in anger. I feel like it's happened to me a couple times. I've made the misstep and told somebody, like, look, I don't know how to tell you this, so I'm just going to say, like, you're part of a clandestine organ. And there's like, oh no, and they blow up. So my question is, did you have this like initial anger? How did you get through that? And then eventually, and you'll go into it, right? Like how you mended the path, I suppose. But how did you feel about that? Did you like have was it the 7 steps of acceptance, or what happened?
Yeah, the stages of grief. Yeah,
it was very much in a grief, I guess, aura during the time. It wasn't so much anger until I got to the next step, I think, or next 2 steps, which I'm going to explain now, as to when the anger came in and when the frustration with everything. And so what had happened is that, I didn't take that information. I took it in, but I didn't accept it in its entirety. It was still in denial a little bit. So, of course, I did my due diligence, and I asked other brothers what they thought of my story, and they told me the same exact thing.
The other brothers of your now known
online that I'd gone another Masonic groups that I was part of, and kind of, hey, tell me about this entity, or this happened in history with this expelled Mason. And they were like, yeah. I was like, oh, I'm in New York, and they're like, ooh, wow, yeah.
But you're doing your due diligence. You're doing your homework. You're trying to figure this thing out.
Correct. So, the original brother who first gave me the bad news, I guess, asked me to reach out to someone who had actually gone to the same experience as me. The brother's name is Chris Wilmore. Now, Chris had come from the same clandestine lodge that I had joined, and he had the same epiphany, if you will, that I just had only 8 years prior. So I spoke to Chris, and he told me when he found out the news, he went as far as typing up a packet of information and explaining what he had found and presenting it to his Grand Secretary of the Grand Lodge several times, and never received a reply. All he got was,
because the Grand Secretary knew.
Right. Yeah, basically, they were never able to prove legitimacy of origin because they never had it.
Yeah.
All Prince Hall lodges, and of course, this is something we've probably touched on before, have legitimacy of origin. They can trace their Grand Lodge back to the mother lodges, England, Ireland, and Scotland. So, with this new found information, I asked my then virtual master if I could address the members of Equality Lodge, that clandestine organization, to inform them of what I had found.
Oh.
The other past masters, the older past masters, all nodded their heads in agreement. They all knew the facts, and they were okay with it. And that's when the anger set in.
Wow.
I was like, you knowingly duped me into thinking I'm joining a legitimate, Masonic organization, and you guys are nothing but illegitimate.
And you're okay with that.
You never asked.
And you're okay with that. Yeah. I'm like, so I said, okay, so if I pull a police officer's badge out of a Cracker Jack box and pin it to my shirt, does that make me a police officer without having gone through valid training and certification from a proper entity to do so? I said, okay. So if I go to become a doctor and I go to an unaccredited institution, I can't practice medicine or be board certified, in this country at least. I told them right then and there that this was my last night in the organization, and they all said they respected my decision and wished me well.
Well, good for you.
So,
And that could have ended a lot worse.
It could have, and I was ready to, get into some scrap with somebody. And thankfully enough that they accepted who they are and that I knew, and they were okay with it. And I'm like, all right, well, do you then? But I'm out. I'm not giving you one more red cent. I'm sorry. I'm done with this. So directly afterward, I spoke to Chris and to tell him what had just transpired, and he was like, "Yep, yep, yep." So he had gone through the same experience I did 8 years prior. And Chris was and still is a Prince Hall Mason, so I had no idea what Prince Hall was, right?
So
So
did
shortly
he
after that,
start to walk through then the Prince Hall and
correct.
how it's legitimate and how to get
And
in and all that?
he explained all that. Now, shortly after that, I spoke to the virtual master of the clandestine lodge and the senior warden, who, along with me, had just been elected to these positions, and that was the first time they had ever heard something like this. So we three agreed to meet at my house, and they wanted to speak to Chris from Prince Hall and another brother that he brought from his Prince Hall lodge. So it was the then virtual master, senior warden, and myself, the former junior warden, the three principal officers, speaking to two Prince Hall brothers, and they explained it to the virtual master and senior warden the same way they had explained it to me. And this is where a very interesting fact came up. The then virtual master proceeds to tell us a story. Now, he was from Barbados, and shortly after becoming virtual master of that lodge, traveled to his home country, where I believe his best friend was a Mason. This brother said that he got dressed in full regalia and attempted to visit his friend's lodge and was turned away. And he had never felt so humiliated and never understood why.
Wow.
And also, he had never told that story to anyone before. So at this point, the three primary officers of that clandestine lodge are enlightened, and the remaining two were set to leave. So they were now losing their three primary officers. Now, through this process, I had remembered that my other niece had an uncle who was also a Mason. He was a member of Ben Franklin Lodge in the Grand Lodge of New York. So I had also spoken with him after all this, and he invited me to a table lodge at the Grand Lodge building in New York City, where I was able to meet his brothers, members from other lodges, as well as the Grand Master of New York. So after everything was said and done, I told him I wasn't sure which way I was leaning toward. I had to make a choice: the Grand Lodge of New York or the Prince Hall Grand Lodge of New York. And my family member said to me, he said, "We love when Prince Hall brothers come here because they're on point. So if you decide to go Prince Hall, you won't go wrong." That was his take on the situation. But you can decide what you like to do. So the course of the next few weeks, I had a very difficult decision to make. So I kept in contact with both brothers from Prince Hall and my family member from the Grand Lodge of New York. And I said, well, God's going to lead me where I need to be. And eventually I made a decision to join Prince Hall. So in doing that, I was advised that I needed to go through the process all over again, which I was fine with since I had probably not gone through them the way I was supposed to. There was some back and forth, and apparently they didn't have enough candidates to hold the degree because they were offering what's called a one-day conferral, all 3 degrees in one day.
No.
Yes.
I didn't know that Prince Hall did those.
They do indeed in New York. So after that was not going to happen, I said, look, I just want to go through the normal way. Let's go to the individual 3 degrees, not to delay the process. I said, I'm fine. So I was going to be set to go through all degrees in their entirety. So the brother who I was now dealing with, who was past master of Sons of Kings Lodge number 123, was also a member of the Grand Lodge in some capacity, and I don't recall what he was. But so he went on and said, hold on, let me call the Grand Master. So I said, okay. He hung up the phone. A few minutes later, he calls me back and says, the Grand Master of Prince Hall Masons of New York has agreed to make you a Mason at sight if one of our stated communications. So I was like, not entirely understanding what he just said, but I'm like, yeah,
sounds
I'll
good.
do that.
Yeah.
That sounds good. I'm like, Grand Master, yeah, well, okay, that sounds cool. So I was actually made a Mason at sight by the Grand Master of Prince Hall Masons of New York
Interesting.
in February of 2014,
Okay.
and a one-day
Wow.
conferral. Yeah. The process, absolutely amazing. I got to finally experience the true beauty of Masonic ritual. The memorization, the delivery, I was really in awe. Like it almost brought tears to my eyes. That's how beautiful it was. And I was finally able to see the beauty of Masonry and appreciate it, having known what I had gone through and been lied to.
Yeah, I mean that's a fantastic journey in itself, right? Because you've really done the whole hero's journey, right from the beginning. Like you've tried something, you found out that you were in this really low spot. You pushed through this process. Again, I'm very brave of you to like just stand up and say, "Hey guys, like, I'm out," and then to experience it with the right way. Let's call it the right way, or at least much more accustomed to the way that it should be done, with all the solemnity and all the the ritual and ceremony that goes with that.
Right.
And
The regular way.
The regular right way, yes.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, so the story should end there, right? I mean, that's really a wonderful story.
You would think it would end there,
But wait,
there's more. There's more. So I hadn't seen every degree in its entirety because I'd went through the one-day conferral. So I said to myself, look, I'm not going to desire to join the line of officers until I see every degree performed. So I sat in the lodge for 1 year, made sure I saw all degrees performed in its entirety. And then I did, and I was asked if I wanted to serve as a senior steward, and I agreed. I said, okay, I'll start from the bottom. No worries. And I'm just to include, I'm happy to say that the Worshipful Master, Brother Andrew Rollins, has since joined Prince Hall Lodge and became a regular Mason as a result of me joining Prince Hall and him. So he followed suit. The senior warden at that time, I believe, was actually set to retire and move back to his country. So I'm not sure what came of him, but he was definitely on that path as well. So I hope that he did continue that path to regular Masonry. So as I was senior steward in the lodge, before my year was up, my wife and I made the bold decision to leave New York and move to Florida. For all the reasons a New Yorker would move to Florida, I guess, and to be closer to her family. When I arrived here in Florida, I was well aware that there was still a separation between Prince Hall and the Grand Lodge of Florida.
Right.
So after
this is all the recognition aspect of the mainstream, Florida Grand Lodge and the Most Worshipful Prince Hall Grand Lodge.
Correct. We recognize that they are both regular, they are regular. We recognize that they're regular, and so on and so forth. But there is no intervisitation. There is none of that yet.
Meaning, if you wanted to sit in a mainstream lodge meeting, it is not possible according to protocol.
Correct. It is not allowed. In New York, it is. So I could have gone Prince Hall to Grand Lodge and sat in their lodge and been fine. Most of the states do have amity between the two Grand Lodges.
Right.
The only two legitimate Grand Lodges, which are Prince Hall affiliated and Grand Lodge of State. So after we arrived here in Florida, I found work within a week, and my wife directly after. Now, in New York,
awesome.
My wife worked for the UN, so she has a pretty phenomenal resume. And she landed a job with Shriners Hospitals for Children in their corporate offices here in Tampa.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know, which was phenomenal. She's still working there, and it's been a blessing. I was still a Prince Hall Mason at the time, and my wife worked for Shriners, which is on the Grand Lodge of Florida. So I reached out to a brother in the Prince Hall Lodge here in Tampa. I wanted to arrange a visitation to a lodge to continue my journey. And we met and discussed, and he invited me down to one of his meetings, and that was my first exposure to any Southern Prince Hall Lodge. I was examined, found proficient. Brothers welcomed me. It was great. They had a great time with the brothers. They were all genuinely great brothers. The building, not so much. They were meeting in a borrowed space, a community center complex where one of the brothers was associated with. And back in New York, we owned our own building, and where multiple lodges met in our district. A big brick building, as New York is.
So just to be clear, there would have been no problem with you visiting, affiliating, all that, or you'd probably have to transfer your membership, because most Prince Hall do not allow dual membership, so you have to demit from New York and become a Prince Hall, Florida Mason, if you wish to, affiliate
Correct.
with that in
Correct.
that state.
At
But
that point, I
you
was a
could
Mason in good
have,
standing.
yeah,
So
exactly,
I visited, yeah, no problem. And I was trying to find a home. So that was my
right.
journey to find a new home, I guess, in Florida. So as I was looking at the Prince Hall lodges in my area and to choose which one to visit, they weren't the prettiest as locations or buildings, some of which had bars in the windows and such. Now, I just want to say before anyone starts to judge, I know one should never judge a book by its cover. And me being a Yankee, right, I knew that things in the South are a little different from what I was accustomed to in the North. So I visited. I wanted to go through the experience of meeting the brothers and sitting in their lodge and seeing how we do it here in the South. I had a great time. At that time, I spoke with my worshipful master of the Prince Hall Lodge in New York, Eduardo Rodriguez, and where I was still affiliated with. And I explained the separation here in Florida, and my wife works for an organization associated with the Grand Lodge of Florida. And I didn't want to feel any kind of way if we ever went to a family function at her job and I would interact with brothers and we
That's
couldn't
true.
communicate openly as Masons should.
Mm-hmm.
In hindsight, I just want to say that it was more of my preconceived notion that they might treat me different, but no one ever did or ever has, nor have I ever heard of anything like that. So it was, I didn't want to feel away. So at the end of the conversation between myself and the worshipful master, he said something very beautiful to me. And he says, whatever decision you make, whether it be Prince Hall or Grand Lodge of Florida, as long as you continue your journey in Freemasonry, do what is best for you and your family. And
Awesome.
that was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders to be free to I didn't want to leave my Prince Hall brethren because they had been so amazing to me over the course of my Masonic career with Prince Hall, and they showed me what true brotherhood was.
Yeah, they healed you and took you in. Absolutely.
Correct. And they accepted me, and it was I was there was no differentiating, and I really learned the beauty of Masonry while in my first real experience with Prince Hall. So when he said that to me, it was like I'm free to make the decision without feeling bad about one way or the other. So again, I said, I'm going to leave the decision in the hands of God to direct me where He sees fit. And as my wife was becoming more knowledgeable on her organization, one of her coworkers mentioned Masonry, and she said, "Oh, my husband's a Mason, but he's Prince Hall." Um, Knowing that I need to make a decision, I reached out to one of her coworkers. It was a brother named Julio Santiago. So he was the senior warden of Tampa Bay Lodge number 252 under the Grand Lodge of Florida, and explained to him my situation. He invited me down and the family to their annual shrimp boil. I've never been to one of those. I don't know what a shrimp boil is.
Sounds
But
good.
yeah, the family and I went, and we had a phenomenal time. Great conversation. I spoke to the worshipful master of Tampa Bay at that point with Dr. Stephen Beck Jr. He invited me down to see the lodge. He said, "Come see. It's cozy. It's a cozy lodge." So during the course of the shrimp boil, which is held outside of the park pavilion, there was some brothers in the corner smoking cigars. So I was in heaven since I'm a big cigar smoker, and I had brought some with me and asked if I could join them, and I felt so welcomed and had such great conversation with these brothers. And I told them that I was a prince, and it didn't matter. Like they treated me as if I was, just a regular person, just a man, and just someone who want to have a good conversation with. No distinction between, oh, you guys are mainstream, I'm Prince Hall. It wasn't like that at all. I'm like, wow, it was just it was fellowship the way it's supposed to be. And one day I made it down to see the lodge building here in downtown Safety Harbor that I'm currently sitting in. And it was exactly that, what the worship master had said. It's a cozy lodge. And I looked in there, I'm like, wow, it's nice in here.
So
The
here you are
drive to the
trusting your
lodge,
gut, but in a different way, right? You're getting
right,
good
right.
vibes from the fellowship, from the atmosphere,
Immersing
from the
myself in the
events.
experience.
Yeah.
That's how I like to do things. I like to make decisions based on experience, not just on recommendation. The drive to the lodge was so pleasant. It was calm. And after the visit, I knew I had found my new home. I petitioned, and they explained to me that I would need to go through all 3 degrees from the start
Wait a
and
minute.
study for proficiency,
Wait,
and that would be required.
wait.
Yes.
Some, but You've already done that twice.
Technically,
Now thrice.
one was Mason at sight.
Sort of.
Correct. But I received all 3 degrees. But I still received all 3 degrees.
You did. Yes.
So, also on top of that, I would also need to remove myself from the membership of Prince Hall before joining Grand Lodge of Florida, which I did. I eventually started my journey to the degrees to be raised to the sublime degree of Master Mason for the 3rd time. And I was raised in Tampa Bay Lodge number 252, Safety Harbor, in November of 2017. And I was asked to join the line as senior steward again, since I had prior experience in that
Masonry
position.
just loves to just put you to work, man. I mean,
that's what I'm here to do, and that's what I said. I said to the master, I'm here to work. So wherever you need me, I'm here to work for you, and please do so.
Do you have like a tattoo,
so Rusty,
like senior steward on you, or something somewhere?
So Rusty, like, how many years total was it between starting your journey with your clandestine lodge in New York to finally becoming a Master Mason in Florida? It was about 4 years, 2013 to 2017?
I would say about 4 years, correct.
Okay.
I didn't
That's
spend very
a
long.
long way.
In the grand scheme of things, not particularly long, but it felt like a very long journey.
Well, I was going to say that's a long way to travel in 4 years. Like, I can see how that would make your head spin.
Yeah. And to have gone through so many degrees within a 4-year span.
I was going to say, like, the man who became a Master Mason thrice.
You are a thrice master.
Yeah. Thrice master.
Thrice raised to the sublime degree. It was quite a journey, let me tell you.
Like, that's the kind of that's like you're going through lodges of research paperwork or something, and they're like, the curious case of Brother Hiram or something, It'll be like,
right.
The same for you, the curious case of the thrice raised bro. We'll end up reading about it in 20 or 30 years.
You have to write this down. You have to capture this and
it's amazing.
And that's something I've actually contemplated doing.
Dude, turn it into a book.
Yeah.
Like, this is a phenomenal story to tell. And I think it could do a lot of people a lot of good.
Right. Yes, it would. If we have any book authors out there or connections to the book world, hook it up.
Yeah. So you got busy, right? So they put you right to work in the Grand Lodge of State, the Grand Lodge of Florida. Yeah,
right.
You're now a
senior steward,
past and raised member.
Correct. Full-fledged member of the Grand Lodge of Florida.
Mm-hmm. Put you to work.
Yeah, right from there, and I went from the senior steward's chair. I actually skipped junior deacon, went right to senior deacon, which is beautiful in itself when you just learn, and progress through the line. And I am now current senior warden of our lodge, soon to be worshipful master of Tampa Bay Lodge 252 for next year in January, if everything goes to plan.
Oh, actually, we're actually gonna have to reinitiate you. So there's this new Grand Lodge that just started up. So if you could just
I think I'm done with joining clandestine outfits.
We're gonna pull you away because the story came in. This is fantastic.
The great thing is you pay all your dues in Bitcoin.
That would be great.
All-time high.
But again, the story hasn't ended because I've progressed through my line. Finally reaching the East. I also became a Scottish Rite Mason in this southern jurisdiction. I'm a guardian of the temple, the chapter of Rose Croix in the Valley of Tampa. Soon to be second vice president of the Suncoast Master Mason Association in Florida's District 18, and a district committeeman for the public relations and publicity. So, yeah, the Masonic journey has not stopped.
Yeah, has not had a meal at home since 2017. So
my wife is watching, and I apologize profusely. I love you so much for putting up with all this.
That's the right answer.
It is for the greater good. I'm here to work, and that's what I told them. And I also don't want to stretch myself too thin, so I'm probably going to be backing off a little bit to focus on my year in the East as Worshipful Master of this lodge.
No kidding, but like the dedication that you've already put into Masonry, like you're paying that forward. You're giving back to the fraternity already, and for that, the echoes of that will just resonate for many years to come. So that's
Thank you.
fantastic that you haven't given up. I mean, and there's a lot of comments both on YouTube and Facebook that echo the same thing. That says the fact that you're like still here, still pushing through, that none of these speed bumps along the way slowed you down is a testament to your perseverance, your zeal for the fraternity, and for just the ability to get where you are today.
Yep.
It's the real
in
calling.
one search, it is. In the search for attainment of light, it just you don't stop, and nothing will deter you from reaching that, whatever it is you want to reach and whatever you're trying to get to. But yeah, I'm a document of that. You don't stop, and nothing will stop you when you want to get to true Masonic light.
So, are you a Shriner yet? That's the real question.
I have not joined the shrine yet. I think I have enough under my belt right now before I join the shrine, and I probably will in the near future. But I like to focus on what I'm doing now, and really getting involved in the Scottish Rite, possibly joining the York Rite, and eventually the Shriners. Yeah, it will happen eventually. Not rushing into anything right now. I said my journey has
Yeah.
taken me to far and beyond where I wanted to ever be. But I don't know what the next couple of years will hold for me. And I'm enjoying the ride, enjoying my brothers, enjoying the fraternity, and I'm glad I got an opportunity to tell the story, because it needs to be heard by some of those who are seeking the light and seeking
Right.
the path.
So, for the epilogue to this story, what have you learned as part of this very unique set of experiences? Like, what would on your deathbed, what are you taking away from this? And, or what are you passing on? What are you sharing to the next generation of Masons that should learn from this experience that you went through?
Well, I guess the true statement would be things are not always as it seems. Do your due diligence when it comes to things that are important, and don't let the roadblocks, no matter how great they seem, stop you from moving forward, stop you from attaining whatever it is you want to attain in life, and just power through it. There's people along the way who will help you, and God will place you in the path that you need to be in. Trust your guidance, trust your conductors through life, and they will get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, that's an excellent set of values to hold as you go through Masonry in general, and your path in particular. One of the questions on YouTube asks, do you regret not joining a PHA lodge down in Florida?
Not particularly. Again, I've had the chance to visit a Prince Hall Lodge, and I was received very well, and they treated me, exceptionally. I can't speak negatively by any stretch of the imagination about my Prince Hall brethren here in Florida. I'm just waiting for the time when I can finally, jump for joy from the rooftops and say that we have finally reached the point of amity between the Grand Lodge of Florida and the Prince Hall Grand Lodge here in Florida, so we can openly embrace each other as brothers, and and really just get down to what Masonry really is. I think the chains have been on far too long in the state for being a melting pot state. Um, Again, just personal opinion of how things are progressing here, but they are progressing, which is a good thing. I don't know why God placed me in this state and to tell my story. Maybe I can be of help to somehow break those chains and finally get to where we need to be, because I have the experience that from all three, which more
Right.
of the two and more important ones. So I can, if I can lend a hand in any way, I will try to do so to try to finally get that. So I'll be very happy when that happens.
Okay, so now we'll open it up for any questions from Robert, Jason. But in lieu of doing a final question for tonight, where we all have our own personal take, each of us will also reserve one final question for Brother Rusty. So kind of think of a really good question as you close things out for the evening, to grill, interrogate, give him the third degree of what his experience was like. But, so let's go ahead and do that now. We'll start with Robert. So, what is your final question for Brother Rusty?
Well, first, thanks for coming on, because a lot of people wouldn't normally consider doing this, right? Like, not a lot of people want to get in front of the world and say their story, what happened. And to be quite honest with you, I was the first time I heard your story about this, of course, we were down there in Florida and we were out on the balcony and you were talking about this a little bit. And I was just amazed at the way things worked out for you. And I don't know if it's the way you, manifested this for yourself. It just seems like you had such a gracious kind of path. And granted, you had these hoops to jump through, as it were, but the way you went through it, and so almost elegantly, to hear you, the way you talk about it, move through the process without losing steam. And I'm sure there was moments where you did lose steam. And I guess for a behind the scenes kind of look, you told us the story, but I am curious. We all have that point in Freemasonry where we just want to pull our hair out and shred the dues card and like whatever, right? We all have those moments. Every once in a while, something fires us up or brings us down. And I'm just curious. The happy ending is amazing. But for the brothers out there right now who are going through something similar, maybe where they're hitting these roadblocks, maybe hearing from you what a low point was and how you moved through that would be beneficial, because you have such an amazing tale. So I'm just curious, can you share with us like a little piece of the low point? What did you think that you were never going to get past?
Well, probably the lowest point would have been when I actually found out the truth about joining that clandestine organization and really felt crushed. Like, I felt like the world had just given up on me and lied to me about something I was so passionate about. And but I knew that there was more. I knew inside that there was more, and I had to find the more. That this wasn't the end of my journey. And I think that was what kept me going, or has kept me going. I know that there is much more to learn on a daily basis, just about the fraternity, about myself, about being a man, about, all the characteristics and all the tenets that we hold dear within Freemasonry, and learning to be a better man, not only for me, for my children, my family, my brothers, the community. And that's what we build here. And I knew that I wasn't going to give up on myself. I needed this. I wanted it. And I was going to do what I needed to do to get it done the right way, regardless of any opposition.
Love it.
Yeah, I love that, man. So cool. Like, just the idea that something, I mentioned the call, and I think a lot of us get the call and we just work and we work and we work. We know it's got to be better on the other side. I'm reminded of there's a show I used to watch called Briscoe County Jr., starring the great Bruce Campbell. Love Bruce. His character was always talking about what's out there on the horizon, the next century, what's around the curve, the next great curve. And I kind of see your journey that way. Like, no matter what, you got kicked down, whatever, the obstacles you always had your eye on the future and the curve, what's coming next, and that there was something great coming. And so, man, just, I don't know, like, right. All the props to you. You succeeded where, I mean, quite honestly, I don't know that I would have had the gusto to move and to do it. They would have told me like no or something, and I would have been like, well, I guess that's that. It would have been like a chapter of my life. So you're the man.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
All
you.
right, Jason. Final question
All right.
for Brother Rusty.
Brother Rusty, which raising had the most profound impact on you, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and why?
Good question.
That is a good question. I think that the Prince Hall one was probably more impactful because of the fact that I finally got to see it done right. Joining a regular organization that is, acknowledged, that is, and the way that was presented to me, it was just, there was no comparison to the clandestine organization. It was just, it left me in awe. It left me in awe, and I smiled through the entire process because it was just so beautiful to me. And I'm like, finally, I've done it right. I got to where I need to get, because I didn't know at that point I was going to continue and leave and leave the state for that matter. So I thought this was it. I thought when I got raised in the Prince Hall Lodge, I would be a Prince Hall Mason forever and live in New York forever. And we don't know where the path takes us, but it was truly beautiful to me. I can't thank those brothers enough for bringing me in and conducting it the way they did. And my family member was right. They're like, if you go Prince Hall, you won't go wrong. They love when they go there and do ritual because they are just on point all the time. And that's the standard I held myself to, which I continually hold myself to now. To make sure that I'm a good reflection of my lodge, on my lodge, to anyone who may see it. And not that the Grand Lodge of Florida has been any different. It has been, you know, absolutely strong and a wonderful experience with these brothers. And the ritual work is just esoterically is just beautiful and well done. And I try to live up to that standard. I try to always make myself better. So I guess I progressively try to make myself better through the process, and will continue to do so.
All right.
Love it.
Excellent. All right. I guess it's over to me now. Hey, Brother Rusty, man, it's so great to see you again. It's so great to have you share your experience, which many people may not even feel comfortable with, but you certainly take it as a badge of honor, or at least as an experience that you've had that's made you who you are today. And for that, I want to thank you for sharing that experience with all of us, so that hopefully someone can take something out of that and write that book, because I know you're going to do that. And so the question that I have for you is actually not my question. It's one
Okay.
from the YouTube, which is from one Christian Valle, who asks, "What is the best part of being a Mason?" So answer it for Christian and answer it for everyone else.
Okay. What is the best part about being a Mason? I guess it's different for everybody. For me, it was or is the fraternity, the fellowship, the brotherhood that that every Mason across the globe has gone through, every regular Mason has gone through the same experience that you did. And you hold these brothers to the same standards that you do yourself. And you know that these brothers are honorable, trustworthy, and no matter where they go or where you go, you'll be treated as such and received as such amongst them. And that's a very powerful thing. We do a lot of good work with charity, and we do things esoterically here where we learn more and more as we come, about each other, about yourself. You know, I, it's funny how much I realize that I've learned by saying this story, but to different people, it means different things. And if some join for charitable organizations, that's great. If some join for the knowledge that you attain as you progress through the different degrees and seeking of light, that's also great. Some just want the friendship of belonging to an organization such as ours that will bring in the great um, fellowship and brotherhood that this fraternity is known for. But that, I think, is the one that stands out to me the most. The unity that every brother is your brother. All my brothers are your uncle. They're all family.
Mm-hmm.
I treat them as such, and so should you. If ever in need, you recognize the square and compass and you see a brother and you're in need of help, that brother will treat you like his son. And that's powerful.
Yeah, amen to that. Couldn't have said it better myself. So, yeah, that's fantastic. You've been able to carry that, live the tenets of the fraternity in your heart, and really just overcome all those little bumps in the road along the way. And my goodness,
Yes.
you're just getting started, right? There's so many chapters that have yet been written in your life.
Right. So I may not want to rush into writing that book just yet because I might need to add chapters or maybe write the second part of the book with the years to come.
That's right.
And I'm looking forward to what it will bring.
Awesome. Hey, you're going to manifest great things, and I really want to wish you the best of luck in your upcoming year in the East. So,
yeah, that's
don't
going to be
screw it
fun.
up. Yeah. Awesome.
I will try my best not to.
That's right.
But with the brothers I have here, support system I have, I don't think I can go wrong.
Absolutely. Yes. And looking forward to your leadership. So with that, if you're watching live, come back at 10:45 Eastern and to the YouTube channel or Facebook page, and you can see a little bit more in-depth episodes breakdown of Dan Brown's The Lost Symbol on Peacock. Otherwise, we'll see you next week. Thank you very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.